All right, Stephen Funes, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much. Truly an honor, man.
Yeah, so for people who don't know, we actually know each other. We've known each other for 4 years now, right?
Yes.
So we met when we were both the deputies at the Hanover Sheriff's Office. But you were on your way out.
I was.
And I was on my way in. And here we are, life paths are crossing again.
It's amazing.
So tell everybody why you ended up leaving the sheriff's office and what you're doing now.
Yeah, so served at the sheriff's office for about 3 years. And then right after that, God had a unique plan for Jasmine and I, my wife. And so she's been pursuing Chick Fil A since she was 16. So this is 11 years in the making to this day. But at that time, God essentially asking me to choose a path at a crossroad. And so, long story short, Chick Fil A or police is what it was starting to boil down to. And I was like, oh my goodness. So the program that Jasmine was doing, she was able to travel for 2.5 years for Chick Fil A, grand open, bunch of new restaurants all over the country. And so there was that option. I can go with her, or I can pursue my childhood dream of continuing law enforcement. So wrestled with God quite a bit on that one.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Marked off one last time, man, in September of 2017, bro. And
Yeah.
the rest was history, man.
You haven't looked back, have you?
Have not.
No.
Have not.
So it's been 2.5 years you guys been traveling the whole time?
Yes.
I've been dying to know.
Yes.
I gotta know. What is it like? tell me the process, right? So before you guys even got started, what was the application process like?
Very lengthy. Roughly about similar, it's like 6 months, similar to like a police application.
Yeah, no joke.
And so while she was working actually at the Chick Fil A in Ashland near Randolph-Macon, I was still patrolling, and it was ironic because she was like, hey, I might get into this traveling program, so you might need to know a little Chick Fil A. And so while I was a deputy, I started working part-time in the restaurant.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so during the day, I was on evening shift, and so, some of the workers, they'd see me come in with my uniform, ordering lunch, and then the next day, I'm over in the back in the kitchen actually making the chicken sandwiches.
Yeah.
So it was very cool. So I did that for a few months, and then back in, I think it was September 2017, she got the word. I was actually in annual training that August with the Army National Guard, and she called me. She's like, I got in. I'm like, man, that's amazing. Like, my life's about to change forever. So I already had my memo typed up for the sheriff's office because I knew it was coming. I felt so much peace that God was really taking this step with us. And so it's like,
Did you know it was going to be 2.5 years?
I knew it was going to be at least 2. Yes. Yeah. That was kind of the commitment on the front end. It could be up to 2.5. It was the kind of the limit in general. So, but man, our very first assignment straight to Minnesota, opening a brand new Chick Fil A.
What time of year was it?
This was in the fall, thankfully.
Yeah. It was getting there. At least it wasn't like February.
No, but it started snowing close to Halloween time frame. We're like, all right, we got to get out of here.
So as you do this, right? So the process is you go to a location that was just opened up?
No, so it's still being built when we get there. Yep. Still finishing. Most of the exterior is finished, but all the interior is still gutted out. And so her job was the grand opening supervisor. She would actually, essentially, there's like a long checklist they had to go through. But long story short, anything from finding the vendors for all the produce to help hiring the team, to actually training the team. And so that's where I came in. I had very little experience. I'm like, police officer going into Chick Fil A, no restaurant experience whatsoever. So I worked myself to become a trainer, essentially. And so she was the supervisor, I was the trainer behind the scenes, helping train the new team members. It was really cool.
Well, for anybody that doesn't know you didn't have the typical like scowl police attitude to you anyways. I mean, you're always kind of like you are right now, just kind of really chill and smiley, and it's all good. So I'm sure people didn't have a hard time getting used to that.
Yeah.
So you guys go in, right? You get all that stuff, and then what happens when it, like, do y'all get to grand opening?
Yes. So we get to actually grand opening day, and those are long days for sure. 12 to 16 hours. You're training, working hard, staying there pretty much the whole day, open to close. The operator and their team is just super pumped about it, and we stay there for about 3 weeks after the grand opening day. to make sure we kind of phase out our training, so make sure that they can fly on their own, so to speak. Then after that, 3 weeks after grand opening day, we fly to the next city, do it all over again.
So the operator is the person who actually is going to be the on-scene like store manager from that point forward.
Yeah, the owner essentially.
Yeah. So you guys are like to go in and like, let's get this thing open. Let's get it rocking and rolling.
Yes, exactly.
And now y'all are in this process, so one day y'all can be the owner?
Correct. Yeah. So this was one avenue. You can either apply directly or do the program that we did. And so we decided to do that.
Yeah. So you did it for 2.5 years. So tell us about some of the places you went. You went to Minnesota first.
Yep. Went to Minnesota. We've been to Connecticut. We've been to Boston. We've been to Texas. I personally have gone to California to help another opening outside of the ones we were doing. We stayed mostly in the Northeast. So anywhere from pretty much from New Jersey up is where we stayed most of the time.
Really?
With Missouri and Texas being a couple outliers.
Where'd you go in Texas?
We went to Texas City, and then we also...
Texas City in Texas?
Yes.
I don't even know where that is.
It's about a half hour east of Houston.
Okay.
So pretty close, maybe like 20, 30 minutes from Galveston Island. So right there was the first one in Texas City. And so we actually stayed on Galveston Island and commuted to Texas City to work each and every day. So... very cool lifestyle.
Nice.
Couple suitcases and a backpack, man.
I was gonna say, where do you stay? You stay in a hotel?
They put us in a hotel or corporate housing.
So corporate housing would be what, like some places they actually have a house that they own?
That, or like for us, when we ever had corporate housing, it was usually in an urban big city, and so it was more of like a kind of an apartment style.
Gotcha. So you had to stay in a hotel for weeks and then go to a new hotel.
Yeah, just her and I and a dog. So it was very small, but it's really all we needed.
Because you're gone most of the day. Yeah, I mean, you're just coming home to shower and grab. I mean, now what about food? Are you eating Chick Fil A 3 times a day?
Chick Fil A, man. But before the store even opens, there's no Chick Fil A because there's no kitchen made yet. So we would, hotel life, microwavables, occasionally we had a good setup, like kitchen-wise, where we had a nice stove, oven. So
do they give you a stipend for the food?
Not really a stipend, but once the store does open, we can eat pretty much free Chick-fil-A during that time. So we ended up, eating out a lot, really just kind of exploring because each city was so different. And so,
I was gonna say, like, if you're young and you don't have kids, that's actually kind of a cool time and because some people aren't like this, but I'm like this. I love to travel for that very reason because I like to go to a city and be like, okay, what's unique about this place? Like I want to find, like when I go somewhere, I want to find that food spot that's like is unique to this city.
Yes. We found a lot of those and it was so fun. And really, food and gas was our only bill the whole time.
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
That's true.
Yeah.
Because they consider you guys as full-time employees, right?
Yep.
So mostly in the Northeast. So that's during the wintertime too. That's got to be cold.
It was very cold. We went through 2 winters in Connecticut. And our last assignment was actually in New York City. We actually stayed in Times Square in corporate housing, which was, I think, the 33rd floor, maybe 1 block away from the actual Times Square ball drop New Year's Eve spot. So super cool spot. We were there for 6 months, which was our longest assignment because normally it's about 2 to 3 months.
Why were you there so long?
This was the first company-owned restaurant, to put it simply. So if an operator retires or moves and they need to put a new owner there, there's like that interim period where it becomes a company-owned restaurant, recalibrate everything, and then find a new owner. So, but that one was the first one in New York. There's just so many more variables in New York City, and so that period of time just happened to be longer.
What was your favorite spot?
In New York?
Or? No. Like your favorite Chick Fil A, like because of the whatever, all the variables, the city, the time, whatever. What was the favorite location you got to go?
Ooh, it's interesting because I think from a lifestyle standpoint, I felt very much at home in New York City. My parents actually met there, got married there, spent very early part of my childhood there, and then they moved south, and so that felt very home for me. That was the first time Jasmine was able to actually experience living deep into a city and loved it. She's super fast paced, loves the high energy. So it was just like an aha moment for her. Like, wow, I could really do this long term. So, but that one, and then the food was amazing. Obviously, in New York City, food was everywhere too. So
Yeah.
that was fun. And then I would say Texas, Houston area was probably my kind of tied for first. Super open. It resembled Virginia just in the laid back culture piece of it. But it was just so open that I could see so much more sky. It was much more flat, and I love driving cars, and so there's just long stretches of highway. I'm just like, this is wonderful.
Yeah, yeah. People don't, if you're not from the city, I'm not from the city. I'm from here in the country, but I've been to New York a couple times, and like you said, the food, man. Oh my gosh, the food is amazing. I remember, I had to do it. I did let me get the New York bagel, like the big old bagel with the cream cheese and jelly. And then I had to get the New York pizza. I had to get a New York cheesecake. I had to stop by a hot dog vendor. I just found some hot dog vendor. Yeah, I did it all. I went to Central Park. So, and this was over a couple different times of going. But, it's like, when you go to Philly, what do you get? Philly cheesesteak. You have to. You can't go to Philly and not get a Philly cheesesteak. That's right. So, if you're going to go down to Texas, you got to get, your Tex-Mex food. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Whatever it is. So, yeah, I'm sure that was good. I personally could never live in a city. Really? Especially New York City. I could never live in a city like that. Like, sometimes what I'll do for fun is I'll pull up Google Maps. This is super dumb, but I'll pull up Google Maps and I'll scroll up to like DC or like New York or LA, and like in the 3-4 in the afternoon, I'll just look at it and be like, because it's just like red car accident, red. And I'm like, how do people do that every day?
It becomes the new norm, man.
It does. It becomes the new norm. Yeah. So like when I came back down here to Virginia, after I lived in Maryland for 6 some years, the traffic, on 295, the interstate that wraps around Richmond, people, would think like, oh man, there's a lot of traffic out here. Like, I can't remember the last time 295 had like a gridlock, unless there's an accident, like a major accident. Yeah. Even with an accident, you still got 2 lanes and they're flowing. But like in Maryland, if you had 695, it's like a beltway or whatever, then it's like jam packed every afternoon. I mean, I remember, it would take me sometimes from like a 7-mile stretch. Take me like almost an hour. Yeah, you know what I mean? And that's the norm. Yep. Right? Yep. So much traffic up there. So much traffic up there. And I became a lot more calm driving when I got back down here, because I was like, this is nothing compared to what it was like night and day.
Oh yeah, for sure. So we used the public transportation a lot. So it was actually, we got faster with no traffic, which was great. We just had to be, super,
on point about it.
Yeah, well, that and just kind of like shoulder to shoulder with strangers in a subway, which, I guess during this time of day is maybe not be ideal, but
well, I worry about that, man. I worry that we're raising a generation of hypochondriacs. And believe me, I'm not one who's like taking the pandemic lightly. I've actually caught some flack from some of my more conservative friends over that, because I'm like, no, there actually is something here like you need to watch out for and be careful of. But I worry that like this generation of kids that are growing up, are going to now be scared to shake somebody's hand or touch something, or like, like everybody has like a cell phone now. It's like, are we gonna have a cell phone and a bottle of hand sanitizer? It's like the new norm to like carry one around
right on the hip.
Yeah, I hope we can get past this.
I think we will. We'll take some time, but I think we will.
Yep, absolutely. So you guys are coming to the end of this journey, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Now, what's the light at the end of the tunnel?
The light at the end is a brand new restaurant with Chick Fil A. Don't know the exact location just yet. Ideally, we'd like to know something by the end of this year. Maybe just another month and a half or so. Keep you posted on that. But we're excited. We definitely feel a lot of doors closed as a result of the pandemic, as far as application process, locations, construction, real estate being shifted. And so a lot of that took a lot of faith, really, just because it was essentially a divine delay. Because earlier this year, we were like, oh, we'll be opening our restaurant by summertime. We'll be living it up, enjoying the new community that we're in. And that obviously wasn't the case. And so we had a longer time span here at home serving at the church that I'm in now. And so that redefined my purpose for this season. And so at first I was upset because I was like, no, this is not the timeline that I had. But as you know,
oh gosh, man,
God's timing is usually way different than ours.
I think He likes to do that to us sometimes to remind us that we're not in control.
Yes.
I really do.
Yes.
Where would you like to go?
Probably, I mean, I think initially Virginia was like, man, we'll be back home. That'd be so cool. But we realized through traveling all over the country, we realized that God is bigger than our hometown. And so we had to kind of open up our minds a little bit more in our hearts. Like, okay, God, sure, if you want to bring us back home one day, great. But home is where we are with you, So wherever you want to send us, overseas, up north, south, doesn't matter. So I think we reached a point where we're like, okay, we'll go wherever God sends us. And so,
is it possible that they could plant you at a Chick Fil A overseas, or is that more of like a special reservation for certain?
We're not like that far international yet. I think they only have maybe 2 in Canada right now. So it's really a slow process going international, but maybe long term, 10, 20 years from now, those options could come available. But, mainly domestic. And so we're just like, well, we can go wherever, man.
Yeah. I know when I've traveled some overseas, like people love like the McDonald's and the Taco Bells and stuff like that. So I can only imagine, man, they would kill for Chick Fil A. They would love some Chick Fil A.
Definitely, man.
So, where's your family at currently? Like your extended family? Are they spread out, or?
Most of them are actually here. My dad lives about 15 minutes from my mom right now. They divorced when I was a toddler age, and so they live right in the Richmond, Chesterfield area, which is really cool. So that's why this extended stay here in Virginia has been really nice to spend more time with them. But outside of that, aunts and uncles wise, most of them are either in Florida or still in New York.
What about your wife's family?
They're all here, right here. And
so if y'all do end up getting planted somewhere else, you're going to be, like you said, like it's not like, well, half my family is here and then, part of it's over here. And so if we end up in Florida, it's okay. But, but hey, like you said, it is what it is. Yeah.
And I mean, really, as long as we're close to an airport, Virginia will be a one-stop shop to see the majority of our families.
Yeah. And in today's world, with phones and Zoom and, all the technology we have, it's not as bad. And plus, like you said, being able to travel with planes and cars and stuff like that makes it a bit easier. So
definitely,
while it is hard, it's not as hard as it was, even 50 years ago.
That's true.
Sort of a thing.
Yeah.
So we were talking a little bit before we started about the little thing that, boom, popped up on the radar unexpectedly now that you kind of had this lull coming back to Virginia with your home church.
Yes.
Right? So what happened there? So you get back, and it's going to be a little bit extended stay in Virginia, and then you get a phone call.
Yeah, I do get the phone call. My pastor buddy actually at Life Church in Mechanicsville, he's like, hey, man, I know you and Jasmine are finishing up the program. We're so excited for you guys. And we've been able to visit periodically throughout that 2.5 years. And so he calls and is like, hey, I know you're going to be back soon, January, February. Well, I really have a big need at the church right now. And I was like, okay, I can kind of be in the need of a job. So, yeah, what do you have, I was thinking something not this. And so he's like, man, I would love for you to be our youth pastor, interim youth pastor, however long you're here. And it confirmed what I felt called to do just in the full-time pastoral ministry standpoint, but youth ministry was not on my radar, to say the least. And so I get back and plug right in, man. I mean, we hit the ground running for a month, and then the pandemic happened. And so
baptism by fire.
Yes. Yes. And so it's a huge transition, because before that, a couple years back, while we were still in town, Jasmine and I were overseeing the young adult ministry, and that was much more our pace. I just had a stronger passion, I guess, for that graduate from high school, but not quite to fully an adult yet, that college age. It was just super tender there spiritually. And so I really grabbed hold of that. So when he mentioned youth ministry, I was like, me? Really? Okay. Don't have a great way with kids at that age, but we'll figure it out. And so here I am in a big room full of teenagers and, feeling called to lead them. It's like, wow.
So that church is it's pretty decent size. How big is it?
Yeah, I think before the pandemic, it was probably 300 to 400 on a Sunday.
Yeah.
Our youth group is probably about the size of like 30 I would say.
So do you have to oversee all the way from like preschool?
Thankfully not.
Yeah,
yes,
that'd be rough.
Yes, they only asked for middle school and high school
Yeah.
for us to take over. So
when I was in Maryland, I started off as a youth minister, and they didn't have a children's minister. They had some volunteers who helped out with a lot of different stuff, but I was technically over from kindergarten through 12th. Oh, and
man.
Yeah, that was a rough part because I'm not like I like hanging out to mess around or play with or whatever, be goofy with like little kids that are beyond under middle school. But when it comes to like teaching them, that's rough, dude. I like teachers or even people in churches who teach kids that age. I mean, wow. That sort of level of patience, and creativity and being able to keep their attention spans.
Must have been exhausting, bro.
Yeah. So I had to take, we had junior church where, obviously during the main service, the kids would be in there and we'd do different activities with them, lessons, games, stuff like that. But even though there was like lesson plans set up and, you just had to follow the lesson plan, it's still hard because you can't just teach through it or go through it like, you're just going through the motions because they're little kids. So now little Johnny's getting up. He's like running over here trying to stick his finger in the light socket or something, and then this girl's over here crying because somebody poked her in the back of the head, and you're just like, I don't have patience for this, man.
Oh, my goodness.
Like, what is God trying to teach me right now? Probably patience because I don't have it. Middle school was cool. Like, I really liked camp from middle school. Like, the high schoolers, senior high week of camp. I don't know how, maybe your experience. Have you ever done any of those? Or like, yeah. So when I would be like the associate dean or whatever, helping out with it, the high schoolers are always like, we're too good for you.
Of course.
You know what I mean? Like we're in high school now.
Yeah, I'm grown now.
Yeah. Like I'm more worried about more important things. And but like the middle school, and you would have some that would try to be rebellious or like try to buck against your authority.
For sure.
The middle schoolers, though, they were still young enough to where they were scared to death of you if you got mad. Like you could strike the fear of God in them. And but they were also young enough to where they didn't mind making a fool of themselves. So like if you wanted to play a game or do something goofy, like they could get into it.
They're all in.
Yeah, where a high schooler's like,
I'm too cool. So and so's looking at me.
Yeah, my friends are looking at me. I don't know about all that. But I mean, I still had a lot of fun with high school group. Was great because, like you said, it's a very, very tender age where, they have a lot of questions. They are thinking for themselves. They're open to ideas. They have a lot of good thoughts. They have a lot of crazy thoughts. You have a chance to try to minister to those and correct them and, help them to think better and have a better perspective. There's so much ministry there.
Yes.
And that's where, like, I think that we forget sometimes that if we're, like, as a church, if we're not grabbing them at that age and even younger than that to lay that foundation, then when they are, that young adult group or even in their 30s and maybe they're coming to church or maybe they're halfway interested in it, like, all that work that has to be done just to get them to the starting point.
Yeah. That
could have been laid way back there.
Yep.
So for anybody who thinks that like youth ministry or children's ministry isn't important, I would argue with you. I'd argue pretty hard with you.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I actually just saw something earlier today. I think it was a Billy Graham article or something, and it was saying something along the lines of 85% of people that come to Christ before they're out of high school. I mean, it's just exactly right what you said.
Yeah, and then it's sad when you think about the retention rate. The lack thereof, all that work that could be done, and then those kids are sliding out because I don't know, maybe they weren't raised in a church culture that welcomed questions or their doubts or tackled some of the hard issues. Like maybe presented them as sort of like this. You just need to have this blind faith, if you will, rather than actually grounding their faith in reason and facts and evidence and truth. So
definitely
that's one of my big passions. Anybody who knows me knows that I'm big time into apologetics because it is, man, like it solidifies that faith that you have, or it will help you go from those doubts to more of a certainty, of understanding like this is the most plausible and reasonable explanation for whatever question I have, sort of a thing.
So good.
So what's it been like? Tell us from the youth minister perspective, the Zoom and the online church, dealing with kids when you can't meet with them.
Yeah. So back in March, all the way up through the summertime, man, it was a challenge. Didn't ever really use Zoom before or any type platform similar to that. And so getting all them and really just partnering with the parents as well. So, hey, look, we know we can't see your kids and hang out with them, but we would love to still spend that weekly time together, even if it is on Zoom. And so we had, various topics, and you had a couple, guest speakers come on, even like the pastor himself come on Zoom. And so try to keep it fresh because, that age group but you have to go so far before they lose their attention span. They're like, oh, this is not that cool, and kind of zoom out, supposedly.
Yeah, right.
But we played games. We had a good time on there. But one thing we did do, because we still were drawn to want to see them, we actually went to every student's house, dropped off a care package, let them know we're thinking about them. And I guess the one-on-one interaction from phone calls and text message was really huge for me as a youth pastor because, I want to connect with them so bad, but I can't see them on a weekly basis in person. And so that was a really good way for me to build relationships with all of the students. And so that when we did come back, it was almost like we didn't really skip a beat. They know me. They know how life has been for me last few months as well as them. And so just pick up the relationship right where it left off. So it was really nice.
Have you had the struggle on Zoom where are they signing on all where you can see them, or some of them got the blank screen?
Most of them, yeah, you can see them.
Okay. So, because I know I've talked to some teachers and they're having this problem where the kids will sign on, but they'll have just their picture up, not actually who they are, but some background picture.
Oh, I see.
But then the kid will be off doing something else.
Oh, no.
Just to be like, oh yeah, I was logged in on class. Because then the teacher will ask a question hey Jimmy, what's the answer to question number 5? Jimmy, hello. And then of course he's out somewhere else doing something else.
Yeah, we try to keep it short enough, half hour or so, just for that reason, because I knew they would sometime in the school year, which is now, because this was back in the spring and summertime for us. And so now we're meeting in person for the last few weeks now. Which is
y'all have been able to come back.
Yes, nice. Yes, it's been super cool. We phased it in, of course. So we phased in Sunday service first, super social distance and everything, one service. And now we're at 2 services to even distance them that much more, less people in the auditorium. And so during that transition time, we phased back in youth ministry and being able to meet weekly. And I think at first, there was a smaller attendance because people were still kind of feeling out the pandemic and things. But now, now you would have thought there wasn't one, a pandemic. So it's been really nice to see the parent partnership as well as the students. And I think now even more so with school the way it is, youth is I gotta have youth on Wednesday nights, So for a student, it's a really nice time.
I think so. I do hope that people start to look at the silver lining through this whole thing, that we realize just how much we are built to be in community.
Yes.
And one of the things that this is I'm about to get on my soapbox about this stuff, right? So this is the thing that I am frustrated with a lot of Christians on how they've handled themselves throughout this year. This crazy year, right? Is they've gotten so caught up in the drama of everything that's going on, and they're complaining and they're whining and they're saying what their opinions are and throwing all this stuff, just basically continuing to stir the pot like everybody else, rather than going, okay, how can I look at this and figure out what is the good angle that we can come at it, right? So one of the things that I think about is people throughout all of our culture are realizing, for the most part, how this isolation is frustrating, and even if they don't know it in those terms, they're feeling it inside, and that's why everybody's really uptight and angry and ready to bite everybody's head off.
Yes.
We are built as God's creatures to be part of community. So the church has a wonderful opportunity here to present that angle of the gospel and be look at the community that God has built for you, the church. And this is how it's supposed to be. And, yes, it has flaws and things like that, but the flaws that people have does not detract from God's holy idea of what God's community is supposed to be, you know? And then even in those flaws, you know, you find some churches that are healthy and they're able to function in such a way with the love and the grace and the forgiveness while people are different skin colors, different backgrounds, different histories, different political views, different all views, you know what I mean? And yet they come together united in Christ and can worship God together in love and affection for one another, taking care of one another. If we can present that message to the community and go, look at what the real community is about.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like that's what we need to be doing during times like this. And it's great to hear that young people are, you know, feeling that need inside of them.
Definitely.
You know, because I think also to take it a step further, it helps that message that we try to communicate to youth, like the social media world is a fake world. You know, that's not real relationships. You can't build real relationships by just having an online group. Yeah. It's got to be real face-to-face stuff.
Absolutely.
You know?
Totally agree with that. Yeah. I actually just watched a documentary. I don't know if you've seen it. The Social Dilemma, I think is the name of it.
I think I've heard of it, but I haven't watched it.
Very good watch.
What's it about?
It's about the dilemma of the social networking and how essentially the various founders and co-founders and department chairs behind Google, Facebook, Pinterest, all of these, Instagram, etc. There's essentially so many algorithms and this huge, you know, supercomputers to no end that is behind everyone's screen. And so as you begin to scroll through your feeds, for example, the computers start to understand you and learn more so much about you and what you like to look at, that the advertisers are kind of essentially capitalizing on that. And so they're selling essentially your future self, because they know that as they're learning you, they're like, hey, by this time of year or by this date, this many people you can have looking at your ads. So this is what we're selling you, kind of thing. And so over time, you essentially just get lost in that. So like you said, with the students, man, I mean, it's a tough world.
It's scary. You're right. It's scary because, like, have you ever been, like, you're just sitting here, right? So my phone's, like, right here in front of me. I'm sitting here, and I'm like, hey, man, you know, I'm thinking I might go camping with my wife or something, like, in a couple weeks, maybe when it, you know, cools off, or maybe when we get some time. And all of a sudden, in, like, an hour later, I pull up social media, I'm scrolling through, and it's like, camping tents, $29.99. You're like, what in the world? Like, how did you, you know? How did you know? You're listening to me.
It's wild, man.
I try not to take it to the level that, like, I know some people who put a piece of tape over top of their webcam. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's like, listen, man, if you got a phone, hey, I mean, if they want to listen in, they're listening in. So hello, Mr. FBI man. You know, we're doing a podcast here. DyerConversations. Find us on YouTube and Instagram and all that good stuff.
Yes.
All the places that are reading my algorithms, I guess. Whatever. Man, I'll be honest. Have you? You're not a big social media guy, are you? Are you on it at all?
I actually am not.
No, you're not on it at all. So any of my listeners can't find him. Got to find him in real life. He lives in Mechanicsville. Go track him down.
Yeah, you can find us through my wife's name, Jasmine Funes. But
there you go.
You don't find a Stephen Funes, and if it is, I'm not on it.
Yeah, dude, I'm telling you, I was just having a conversation today with the minister. And we were talking about social media, and you know, I was like, I don't know the answer to this, right? So I'm about to pose this, but I really don't know the answer to it. I wonder what Jesus would be like for social media in today's culture. Like, I feel like on one end, I'm like, would he leverage it for his message? Or would he be the guy who's like, yeah, I'm not touching that. If you want to hear me, you come find me. And then just allow his popularity to spread by word of mouth, because clearly, you know, that can work.
Clearly,
you know, clearly that can work if you just, whatever it is, if you're doing it and it's making an impact, like people are going to find out about it word of mouth. You know, and then other people will post stuff on social media about it. It's like, I wonder, what do you think? What do you think he'd be like?
It's interesting. I almost think he would put his message on like the moon, and so everyone can see it all at one time, not away from technology, just looking up towards him. You know? But I think you probably have a balance. I think there's so much good you can do leveraging social media and the technology platforms. But I think at a point, the risk outweighs the reward. And so like, I think at first the reward was through the roof and the risk was very low. But because the social interaction has shifted to what we see now, I think the risk is definitely higher at this point.
Yeah, I'd agree, man. Like, I mean, I'm on social media, but I have found my level of activity on social media, as far as posting substantial thoughts or comments on things. You know, like I'll post your goofy stuff just for a laugh.
Yeah.
You know, or like I used to do a lot. I used to post a proverb every day or a Bible verse. And then like every once in a while, if like, you know, I hear something really just really wise, really smart, you know, it's not anything controversial. It's, you know, it's not anything anybody would disagree with or something like that. I'll throw it out there. Boom. You know, and of course the podcast, I try to promote that on the social medias. But yeah, I've just like throughout this year, I've just found my interest in it and my activity on it declining greatly.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I mean, you get lost. It's like this rabbit hole you get lost in of just scrolling and scrolling. And before you know it, you're just like, man, I just wasted like an hour of my life, you know?
Oh, yeah, exactly. And then for me, you know, just to be transparent, like social media ended up becoming a trigger for lust and pornography. And so,
yep. Yeah, it does.
At first, I started like, well, I'll just limit my usage. But I was like, man, I sound like a user. Like, what? Why am I describing myself as a user for this? But in reality, that's what was triggering the end result of being able to be lost in porn. And it's like, well, dang, how the world did I get here? Well, I know why. I was scrolling through a feed, and about 30 minutes in, some random images start popping up. And so because of that, I was like, well, my walk with God and my marriage are way more important than me being on social media. And so I closed it, man, and I felt this wonderful freedom, got a lot more of my time back, personal time. I was just like, wow, I think I like this lifestyle way better. And so haven't been on it since. It's been a long time.
So when I had Fred and Casey over to do the last podcast, you know, they deal with a lot of addiction, recovery, and stuff like that. So we talked about that. We talked about how addiction's addiction. Like, it's not just a substance abuse like drugs or alcohol. I mean, you could be addicted to your work. You could be addicted to social media, big time. You know, you could be addicted to your hobby, like playing golf or what. Like, there's addiction is addiction, you know? And absolutely. I mean, it is. It's not even a secret anymore. I think I mean, we're not saying anything new here. Like, a lot of people understand, like, social media is an addiction, you know, and I'll catch myself doing it. You know, it's like, okay, I'm in a drive-thru and I'm about to order something. Okay, I'm ordering something. I'm waiting behind 3 cars. Why am I pulling my phone out?
Right.
Like why do I have to look at social media right now? Why can't you just sit here for 5 minutes in line and just be patient? You know?
You're exactly right.
And so I get on myself about that. You know, because I don't want to be that guy. You know, like you ever gone out in public? I'm sure you do because you're not on social media, right? You go out in public and you just look around, people watch.
Yep. And all of them.
All of them.
Face to the screen.
I don't know how they don't walk in poles. You know, just walk, bam, right into a pole.
I've seen them fall off curves. That's for sure. It's like, what in the world, man? Yeah, it's wild.
It's sad, you know, and I wonder, I'm sure there's going to be some really good, like, psychological, sociological studies, probably both, on the mental health aspect of how social media has really deteriorated us as a culture and as individuals.
Yes.
Because, I mean, you have kids now who are committing suicide on a live feed social media platform. Bro, that's dark.
It's very dark.
Like what happened to where you're, and believe me, I'm not let me say this. I am not criticizing anybody. I'm only asking the big philosophical question, like, what has happened to us as a culture to where that has become our self-worth?
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
And I mean, I haven't done a lot of study into it. I've done a little bit of research into it, like here and there, about how, you know, the psychologists will talk about the different chemical reactions that happen in our brain, you know, what is it? I'm probably gonna get corrected for this. What is it, dopamine or something?
Yeah.
So like when you look on and you're like, I posted that picture and I usually only get 20 likes, but now on this one I got 50 likes and like now you're all ooh.
Dopamine through the roof.
Yeah, but then next time you post, you're like, I only got 4 likes. Oh, I hate myself. And it's like, again, huge impact for the church culture to try to bring that shift back. To help us understand our self-worth is found in Christ.
Amen.
And not in people's clicking our, like button.
Yes. On that Social Dilemma documentary, the founder of the like button is on there speaking. And he kind of just shakes his head like, this is not where I expected it to go. Like it was all good intention for the like button. But now it's become so negative, ironically.
Remember when people don't know this, or some people do, but remember when Facebook used to have the dislike button?
I think so.
Yeah,
wow.
dude. Yeah, they had the dislike button. Because for a while there, after they took it away, people were like, bring back the dislike button. And like, I was all for, bringing it back. But then I'm thinking now, like,
that would be catastrophic.
No, like people would be depressed out of the,
more than they are.
Now.
So yeah, man.
That'd be crazy. So how long you been doing the youth ministry thing now?
Since February. So
right at the start of the pandemic.
Yes. Got one good month in and then closed up shop. But yeah, now it's been really cool. We meet every Wednesday night. The first week of the month is a youth service. So either myself is speaking or a guest speaker or somebody from our leadership team. So that's been really fun to not only get just more opportunity just to connect with the students at that level, but also essentially do leadership development with my staff to allow them to kind of exercise what they feel called to do. And so that's been really nice. And then the subsequent weeks of the month, we either just have a small group where we have a curriculum, or we do a social event of some kind. And so it's been a nice balance. I think obviously we do it's almost like 75% spiritual and then 25% fun, from like game night type stuff.
Sure.
So that's been a really cool balance. And I think they like it because they continue to bring their friends. And so it's like, okay, what we're doing is working. All right. We're not scaring them away. So
did you have to, and I know there's a little bit of separation between that and when you left the sheriff's office. But maybe I guess my question would be more in line with like when you left the sheriff's office to work, traveling for Chick Fil A. Did you have to switch kind of like your, I don't know, demeanor or like just kind of like your vibe that you're giving to people? You know what I mean? Because like people who've never been in law enforcement don't understand that they're like, while you're not a robot and you're still a human being, like there's that level of separation, and it's not an arrogant thing. It's not like, there's no like, I'm the law, you're not. No, it's more of like, I'm here to do a job, and that job could mean I'm taking you to jail. So I'm like, I'm not coming here and like, we're like buddies, like when I come to your house, cause I'm a life insurance salesman, like I'm here to offer you something. I'm hoping you buy it. You're hoping I have something good.
Right.
When you come to meet me, I'm a car salesman, it's the same sort of deal, but it's like most of the time, if I'm coming as a cop, it's because something bad happened, So did you have to like, was there a learning curve back? Huge
learning curve. I think from being in the military since I was 17, constantly pursuing law enforcement, got in it both in the jails and on patrol. That just became me. It became my mindset, my identity. I didn't come to Christ actually until 10 years ago. So right in the midst of all that, but leaving the sheriff's office, it took about, I would say, 6 months for me to just do the initial transition of like, oh, I'm a civilian, like forever kind of thing. And so it took about 2 years for me to like fully disengage it because your head's just constantly on a swivel. You're constantly thinking about security, safety, and all those things, threat levels. And so you just almost mentally exhausted because you're just constantly assessing every circumstance you're in, whether you're out, especially out in public. And so transitioning to Chick Fil A, I still had that natural demeanor of a soldier or a police officer. Like, did you ever serve in the military before? You just had that natural look. But the youth ministry definitely helped me to, I don't want to say soften, but like, I guess become that much more personable, because they definitely need that at that age, middle school, high school. They don't need this authoritative, feel. So, but I think all of that God did something really cool and combined all those experiences from being a soldier, being a police officer, serving in the restaurant, took all of that and built, customized, right? This youth pastor and wife that were able to connect on all of those levels that the students need, while also showing them that, you know, we don't take any crap as well.
Yeah, right.
So it was just this happy, like, balance, just really healthy balance there. So,
yeah, I mean, yeah, that's the good point, right? It's like when you're in law enforcement, even when you're off duty, like, you know, you're going out to dinner or something with your wife or with your kids or with your friends, like, people understand it's ingrained in you, and for good reasons, that, you know, I'm scanning people, right? Do I see weapons? Do I, you know, like what's bulging from their hip? Do they have a knife on them? You know, or how many people is with that group? So if that guy attacks me, has he got 2 or 3 friends coming with him? What are the exits of this restaurant? Where can I sit in this restaurant to where people can't sneak up behind me? You know, if somebody walks past me to go to the bathroom, I'm like thinking, are they going, you know, what if that person sneaks up and tries to like choke me out? Like, how am I going to respond?
Yeah.
You know, like your mind is constantly rolling like that. You know, you pull up to a gas station, all of a sudden somebody pulls up, and, you know, maybe they're a little bit sketchy, and you're like, okay, are they about to rob this gas station? You know, how am I going to respond?
Right.
Do I have a weapon on me? Do I not have a weapon on me? You know, am I retreating at this point, or am I going to try to play hero? You know, like your mind just constantly going. And yeah, like if you get out of it, and it's like, well, it's always good to be alert, but it's not like you can, you know, you don't have the responsibility or the authority to do anything about it, you know, in that sort of sense. I mean, yeah, we try to be good Samaritans. We're not going to just let somebody get killed, but
for sure,
you know, you're not a cop anymore, right? So it's not your job.
Yep.
But it's still weird because, you know, that was such a huge part of your life, you know, and even though, you know, maybe in the scheme of like, oh, well, you know, you're going to live to be 80, and that was only like, you know, 6, 7, 8 years of it. Yeah. But, you know, it's a huge shaping part, because it's one of those things, like once you experience it, you can't not experience it.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's the same thing for guys who go to war, you know, and get deployed. It's like once you go to war and you come back here, like you never really forget. There's like a different element of life.
Definitely. I think you were right about the molding piece. And I think the more your adrenaline spikes are attached to that type of environment or atmosphere, it takes that much, it has more permanent, I guess, results from that. So
I never thought about it like that.
Yeah.
I worry about myself now.
You're going to forever think that way, my man.
Yeah, forever. It's never going to take away.
But on the flip side of that, or the caveat to that, is you take all those experiences, you're able to align the gospel, align your walk with Christ with that, and you're able to connect with so many more people as a result. So that's what I think the beauty of it.
Well, the church I'm at now, yeah, like you said, I mean, God's so awesome in how he does. He'll mold you and shape you, you know, through what you're going through now for what he wants to use you for later, while also using you right now if you let him, right? So like the church I'm at now has a lot of police, military, firefighters, and then guys who work in such capacity that they can't tell you what they do.
Yeah.
Those guys.
Yeah.
Right. So, you know, they understand that thing we were just talking about. And it's almost like, again, not an arrogant thing. It's really hard to explain, but it's almost like if you haven't been there in that sort of life, it's almost harder for you to connect with that person. Not saying that cops can't have non-cop friends, because clearly they do. I do.
Yeah.
But there's a different, you know, it's almost like you and me can look at each other and we kind of know. We know that different level that people don't usually experience. You know?
Exactly.
So that's why I hear a lot of military guys when they talk about coming back from war, you know, and they got those brotherhood bonds with those guys that they went with, because when you experience those things with a group of people, there's a bonding element there.
Definitely.
You know, like there's something, I don't even know. I'm not smart enough to understand it, but there's a bonding element there that will never be broken. It can't be broken.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing with law enforcement. That's why they call it, you know, the brotherhood.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's just, yeah, I guess in a sense that switch never goes off.
Not really.
I don't think it ever will.
Yeah. Even to this day, I mean, it's been 3 years for me. It's still there. It's still there. So,
but that's all good though, because it's life.
It is.
So I mean, we're here for a short time, and the goal is for God to use us.
Exactly.
So whatever way He can use us, that's what we want to do.
Amen.
So what's the plan? What happens if Chick Fil A calls you and is like, "Hey man, we want to send you to such and such place"? You going?
Going.
Nice.
Going, man. Full speed ahead. It's been a long interview process. It's about 2 to 3 year process in general, just for the application and interviews. And it's a ton of interviews, bro. They interview us more, or Jasmine, excuse me. I'll get interviewed at some point. But she's been interviewed more than I was interviewed to become a police officer. It's just wild how in depth they dig. But it's worth it. It's definitely worth it. And so being at the tail end now, I mean, we've got the green light to be owners. They're just trying to pinpoint where they see the best fit for that long-term partnership. So it's really humbling and it's really fun, but very exciting because we have no clue where God wants to send us. And so it was funny because recently, a few months ago, we were thinking that Virginia was going to be it. We saw multiple stores like close to hometown. We're like, man, that'd be so cool. God bring us right back to where it all started.
They just put one up on 301.
Right. And so it's like this story that we were writing. We were like, oh man, this would be beautiful. What a poetic ending. This is glorious, right? And then God just kept closing those doors one at a time. We're like, and we got mad at God. We're like, Lord, what are you doing? Like, this makes no sense why you're closing that door. And he's just like, just shaking his head, right? Just imagine it. And so I know the door that does open will be the one that God wants us to walk through. And so I guess you reach a point where you're like, you just trust God's will despite whatever plan you have. I mean, when I was a kid, bro, I loved playing cops and robbers so much as a kid out in the yard. It literally formulated like my career path since I was young. And I remember I was in 5th grade on September 11th, 2001. And I remember
you were in 5th grade at that point?
5th grade.
I was in 12th grade.
Wow. So I remember seeing that event unfold on the television in my classroom. And it was in that moment I felt like there was just like a deep seed that was planted, like, I want to serve my country. And my dad was a Marine. My brother was also a Marine, multiple aunts and uncles in law enforcement. And so it was just like, yeah, I'm going to do this. And I was 5th grade. And so taking that whole career path and then God saying, okay, that's great. I gave you the desire of your heart of wanting to serve in that capacity, but now I have something else for you. It's not that it's bigger and better. It's just different. It's just
different. Yep.
The next chapter, you're just turning the page. And so it's a unique story that he's writing and I'm in the middle of it. But I think the biggest thing for me was like when I started to fully trust him, that's when the fun factor just kicked in that much more. So,
yeah, that's the thing is like, when the longer you progress as a Christian, the more that understanding of you might not know what the end game is, but you can see God moving. Like you can understand, okay, I get it. I get it. He's saying no here. Maybe he's saying hold here, or maybe he's saying go there. It's like the same thing with Abraham, right? He told Abraham, I learned this from, I think it was A.W. Tozer. Have you ever heard of A.W. Tozer?
Yeah.
I love A.W. Listen, if you don't read A.W. Tozer, you need to. If you listen to this podcast, just turn the podcast off, go read A.W. Tozer. But so he said when God called, I think it's him, maybe I'm misquoting, but he said when God called Abraham, he didn't tell him where to go. He just told him, leave where you are. Go to a country I will show you. Right? So like I think about that. Like a lot of times when God calls us, he tells us to leave where we are, but doesn't tell us where we're going. But that's the trust factor.
Yes.
Right? So you learn, as Hebrews says, you have your senses trained for righteousness. So you begin to learn kind of how God moves and how he works and how he functions. And you see like, as you look back on your life and go, okay, that's how he did things then. Now I'm at this next wave or phase of life, and kind of the same thing. I can feel a transition brewing, or I'm in the transition, and that's where the trust factor comes in. And if you learn to trust him, and you ride that wave, it's like it all works out. It's all good.
It does, man.
And it's fun.
It is fun.
fun.
Yes.
I mean, even when it's not fun, it's fun. Because like if you really love God, even in the times when he sends you in a place that it's not fun, it's fun because you go, this is God's wave.
Yep.
So even though it's rough, it's the right one to be on.
Yeah, it's worth it. It's worth it. I mean, even despite any persecution you may face, you recognize that there's still a purpose even in that. And so you just live that much more freely.
You think that's why Paul might have been singing in jail?
I think so. He's like, man, regardless if I live or die,
this is good to go, man.
Jesus is in control, and so I can trust that. So,
Oh, so what's your favorite Bible verse?
Ooh, it was funny because when I was in New York City, I started to run a lot. I did a marathon back in 2015.
A whole marathon?
I did. Yeah,
the whole
back
one.
In 2015 November.
Wow, bro.
It was pretty sweet.
How long did you train for that?
About 4 months.
That's it?
That was it. Yeah. I mean, I was running fairly well, like from the military, so I at least had up to 5 miles, right, in my belt. We never really ran much more than that normally, so my 5 mile was my start point, and so 4 months later, did the big race, and I'm gonna tell you what, man.
What was the longest you ran before the marathon?
5 miles.
So your training consisted of just running 5 miles?
No, like so. Yeah. So sorry. So prior to starting my training, the furthest I've gone was 5 miles.
Okay.
So in the training of the 4 months, it ranged, but I think the most that I ran was like 18 to 20 miles.
Okay, so you were pretty much at that point.
Yes, yes. But man, race day, bro, mile 18.
It hit you.
Nailed me. I literally walked off the course, stood up against a tree and started stretching. I was like, I can't go any further. I cannot go any further. And that classic verse, man, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And I was like, Lord, Paul talked about it, even his weakest point, you came through and your strength was made perfect. I said, Lord, I can't finish this race on my own. And I think for the first 18 miles, I was kind of leaning more on my own training. I was like, I've done this. I've trained this much. I've got my shoes just right. Like, I can do this. And so when mile 18 came, I was like, I cannot do this any longer. Help me. I mean, dude, I had grandmas running right past me, bro. 12-year-old girls just, I was like, what in the world? My pride was hurting, bro, to be honest.
It
was. But man, I crossed that finish line. Jasmine was actually running a half marathon simultaneously. And so we were able to, I was able to see her cross the finish line after I finished. And it was just so cool, man.
How much weight did you lose during this training? Because I feel like you gotta be eating like 4,000
ton of calories, bro.
Calories.
I loved it because I was still, I guess, in my mid-20s, and so my metabolism was still on point. I feel the difference now, almost 30. But, dude, yeah, I think I maybe have only lost maybe like 10 pounds. Like it was super tone, body fat was gone. Just living that good life.
Chelsea ran a couple half marathons.
Nice.
And she that's her jam, man, was like to run. So she trained for a couple and ran them. And I mean, that fantastic, she always wants me to go running with her. And so like most of the time I'm like, I don't want to, but we got into some running, especially like during this past summer because like, I couldn't go do my jiu-jitsu because our gym was shut down and, I was still working out. We got a little garage gym. I'll show you that later, but we got a little garage gym that we've been building. And then, we were running a lot and I'm kind of like naturally built for it, even though I don't really like it.
Yeah.
Like my endurance can jump up pretty quick.
Nice.
So like I remember one day, this was like a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago now. Like a year and a half ago. I was thinking about going into the National Guard. Like I wanted to sign up, and it's like her cousin was over. The guy I was telling you about earlier.
Yeah.
And we're all talking, so it gets me all hyped up, man. Like I want to get in, but I'm at that point now where I'm too old to have that dream of, military career, go do all the like secret Green Beret stuff,
sure,
SEAL team, whatever. But I was like, hey, I can still get into the National Guard. Like that'd be pretty sweet, still live somewhat of that life or experience, the military life. And like she was like, nah, I don't want you to do it because she like she didn't want me to be deployed or whatever. And she has nothing wrong with the military. Don't get me wrong. But just where we're at in our life. And so we were joking. and she was going to go for a run. She's training for a half marathon. And she goes, if you run 7 miles with me, because she was about to go run 7 miles. And this was that time when like I hadn't run in like a year.
Wow.
If you run 7 miles with me, then you can go to sign up with the National Guard. So I was like, game on. So I strapped my shoes on, dude. I went out there and ran whole 7 miles.
What?
Whole 7 miles.
Crushed it.
It, dude. And then we went and talked to a recruiter.
No kidding.
But then when like the rubber met the road, she's like, yeah, I don't think I want you to do it.
Wow.
It's all good. It all works out for the best, though.
It does. Yes. Amen to that.
He tried to get her to sign up.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't blame him.
Yeah, because he was like, if you come in, then I'll bring you in as like a major.
Boom.
You know, because she's a PA.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was gonna, bring her in, outrank me, all that good stuff. And I'm like, yeah, whatever,
It works,
we'll
man.
do it. She was actually thinking about it for a minute.
Wow. How different your life would have been.
How different it definitely would have been, but it all works out in the end, right?
Sure does.
All works out in the end. So you're gonna be doing the youth ministry thing at Life Church for a little bit. You think Chick Fil A is going to delay on you?
I think yes and no. I think it's been a delay since we started, but I think especially as 2021 approaches, they've got the pandemic. I don't want to say they have it under control, but they've adjusted accordingly, and it's actually been growing in sales as a result, which is pretty wild. But
that's not surprising for Chick Fil A because, like, people always joke about the way Chick Fil A is run. They're, it's like you think the drive-through, for example. They're like, man, whoever does the Chick Fil A drive-through, that person should run the government. Have you ever seen those jokes? Oh my gosh, yeah, because they're on social media.
Yeah,
but people joke.
But I've heard them verbalize it. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, but it's so true because you can see here's a business. You're right in the private sector. It's well run. Clearly, they're doing things right because they're getting business. Right. If you're doing things wrong, you're not going to be getting business. They're doing things right. They have great service, great food, and they're super on point. What's the secret? And they're closed one day a week.
Yeah,
on a weekend.
Yes,
they're closed, and they're still rocking and rolling.
It's a blessed business, bro.
Yes, it is.
Do you know what the first 3 words of the corporate purpose for Chick Fil A is?
No idea.
To glorify God.
Amen.
That's where it starts, man. True Kathy has a stone outside a corporate office with that ingrained.
Like it.
That's it. It's a blessed business. Close on Sunday to respect that and to be good stewards of what we have. It's embedded throughout so much that God is just like, of course I'm going to show favor over that business. That's my business.
Yeah, that's what they call it. It's God's chicken.
Exactly.
It's God's chicken. And listen, what they said, the other thing they said was, we didn't have all this problem in 2020 until Popeyes tried to mess with Chick Fil A chicken.
That's a good one.
Did you hear that one? No, you haven't heard that one?
That's a good one.
Yeah, because I don't even know. What was it? Popeyes came out with like some chicken sandwich. Like they were trying to they were trying to rival Chick Fil A. And then 2020 happened. Thanks, Popeyes.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks. I'll be honest. I like Popeyes, but if I had a choice,
some good food, yeah.
If I had a choice, it's Chick Fil A all the way, man.
Thank you.
I love some chicken. I do, man. I actually I knew a guy in Maryland. I knew a couple guys in Maryland who were affiliated with Chick Fil A. Like one of them, I think he was one of the owners of a Chick Fil A. I can't remember now, but like he would always invite me to like the Orioles games, and like we would get to sit like up in the box.
Beautiful.
Like we go up there and there's like food and drinks and like you're in this like
whole suite. Yeah.
Yeah, there's like a TV, but then the game's right there, bro. Talk about, I don't know. He just was inviting me, I guess, because I worked for the church. I was like super special. I don't know, but he was a cool enough guy, And then we dude, he was like the marketing manager or something for a Chick Fil A. There's another person who came to our church who ran a Chick Fil A. So we had a lot of Chick Fil A people. Obviously they were clearly great people. The church I work at now, Life Point, we've been partnering with Chick Fil A's in the area to basically, we will take a box lunch to the different schools right now. So like we'll show up to a school. Like we showed up to a school today. I can't remember which one it was. because I just started working with them, so they've been doing all these different schools. And I forgot which one we went to today, but anyway, so we went to the school and we dropped off like 100 Chick Fil A box lunches, for like the teachers and the staff and the people who work there.
Yeah,
because clearly what they're having to do right now is
whole new world.
Beat your head into the wall, rough. If you talk to any teacher right now, they're about ready to quit.
Essentially,
I think they're all ready to quit, dude.
Yeah.
I don't blame them.
I can't imagine.
It's rough, man. I don't know the answer to that.
No.
I don't know that. That's for smarter people than me to deal with. But I just know that we try to appreciate them. So we drop it off, give them, box lunch, Chick Fil A gift card,
That's
stuff
so
like that.
cool.
Show all the teachers in the area we appreciate them. So
yeah,
hopefully they know.
Yeah, yeah. Chick Fil A speaks that.
Yeah.
When you bring that on the doorstep, they know you care.
Yep, that's right. I don't know anybody who doesn't like Chick Fil A. Maybe a few people.
And if they've never had it or dislike it, as soon as they go and enjoy the food and the service and the whole experience, they become a raving fan almost instantly. So,
do you know, somebody told, one of the guys who worked there told me one of those guys I was talking about told me that the Chick Fil A sauce wasn't original to the business.
Correct.
Yeah, it was later invented.
It was actually invented at a Chick Fil A here in Virginia.
Really?
Yep.
Which one? Do you know?
Right up in Fredericksburg. I want to say South Point, maybe.
Maybe.
Don't quote me on the name, but yeah, they created it. Chick Fil A found out, and I don't know what deal they made, but long story short, everybody's got Chick Fil A sauce now.
Well, whatever they did, whoever invented that should have got a nice paycheck.
You're right.
So what is the process when you say that Chick Fil A is it? I know Chick Fil A technically owns the name, but does that person own that store, or they how does that work? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like a franchise. So you have that 50-50 partnership essentially. And so, for example, if I owned a Chick Fil A, 30 years later I want to retire, the store goes back to Chick Fil A. They put a new owner there, and it continues. So you essentially just split the profit with Chick Fil A.
So there's certain parameters by which you have to work in. You clearly, if you own the store, you can't start changing the chicken sandwich.
Correct.
Or changing the label and those sort of things.
Correct.
But that one store obviously had the ability to make a sauce that was unique to them.
Yeah, and they had to get it approved before they sold it, if that makes sense.
Oh, so it's not like they were off kind of doing it and then word of mouth got out. They were like, hey, we got an idea.
Yes, yeah. So they have plenty of, I guess, business consultants that work for Chick Fil A that you have to be in contact with if you're doing something at that level. Say, hey, do you approve of this, or can you kind of run this up the chain? So they're very organized that way. It's right up the chain, it comes back down. All right, we have a green light, and by the way, send some over here so we can try it.
So what they did was they put a waffle fry and a little cup of that sauce on the desk of the man.
That's right.
And they said, here you go, sir. Sign off on that.
Exactly.
And then he was like, yep, here you go.
And we're all thankful for it.
I wonder what the process was like in the sense of how many tweaks they have to do to that recipe.
It's a good question.
I'm sure
it's quite a concoction.
I'm sure they did some.
I think they're selling it now in Walmarts and.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
You should not have told me this.
I just saw a couple articles just recently. I was like, oh, it's finally coming. I knew it was coming. I just didn't know when, but I think they're starting to launch it out, which is a good timing for the holiday season.
Yeah.
You find that in your stocking, bro.
I wish you wouldn't have told me that. I do. Man, it's one of those things where it's you'll get let me get this meal or whatever. Make sure you put that Chick Fil A sauce in the bag.
Yeah, that one and Polynesian is the two that they're going to be selling in stores. So
yeah, Polynesian's a good one. That was my go-to before I got hooked on the Chick Fil A sauce. How long ago did Chick Fil A sauce come out? Do you know?
It's a good question. I'm not sure.
Because I don't remember it. I remember going to Chick Fil A's and I used to get the Polynesian sauce all the time before I even knew anything about the Chick Fil A sauce.
Okay, yeah.
So I must have been going before it was really a big popular thing, or maybe
Probably.
I was just dumb.
It's still fairly recent. It's only been X amount of years. I don't think it's been a couple decades since it's been out. So.
Yeah. So, but then when I found that Chick Fil A sauce,
on the money.
what's your go-to meal there?
Ooh, definitely the spicy deluxe. Add bacon.
Yes.
Gets me every time.
When I'm feeling like I need to be a bit healthy, I'll get the chicken wrap. the avocado ranch.
Oh, the avocado lime ranch.
Yeah, that's my favorite sauce for that one.
I had so many of those when we were in the academy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. She was working there, obviously, so I was like, she would just, get me some, and I would take it to lunch. Yep, right there.
I say healthy, but I would still get the French or the waffle fries with Chick Fil A sauce.
Oh yeah, that had your.
I mean, you can't.
You got to, man.
You can't not get that. People don't know, or people. I would say not enough people know. Y'all got some milkshakes that are amazing.
Yes. What's your favorite?
Man, I'm pretty standard. I'd probably just say like the chocolate chip one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like the cookies and cream.
Yeah, the cookies and cream one. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it when the peach or the peppermint.
I'm not a peach guy.
No,
I can't do the peach.
Strawberry.
I mean, I like strawberry. Yep.
Okay.
But cookies and cream definitely trump strawberry.
Make sure go ahead and ask for extra cookies. You can do that.
Chelsea likes the lemonade thing.
It's like the frosted lemonade.
Yes,
that's a good one.
Yeah, that's her thing, man. Because she likes lemonade.
Love their lemonade.
Yeah, so she likes that. I'm not a big lemonade guy, so I'm like, whatever.
Yeah,
whatever. So, you think that's the long-term plan?
Yeah,
Chick Fil A.
I think God's going to do something very unique. I think Chick Fil A is a long-term plan, and so is ministry.
Yeah,
but it's like they're one and the same in my eyes. Think about the restaurant. You think about the team that we'll have. I mean, that's my new congregation essentially. The guests that come in. I mean, those are the evangelistic opportunities, so to speak. Not in a proselytizing as they come in to buy chicken, but more so being able to, one, keep a pulse on the community that I'm in, but also being able to be there in their high highs and their low lows. And
I mean, and too, like, just like we talked about here, the Chick Fil A's have partnered with churches to do, good things. So you're going to have those opportunities no matter where you go.
Exactly.
And knowing you'll be connected to a church and be able to be part of the local congregation doing stuff there too.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think it's going to be a combination of all that. And so I remember while I was in New York City, we actually went to Times Square Church. And at first, you think of Times Square Church, you're like, what in the world would that look like?
Yeah.
But dude, you talk about a congregation of people that are on fire for God in the midst of what you would think is kind of chaos. It was wonderful, man. Every Tuesday night we would go there. They had a prayer service that was, I think it was broadcasted to over 100 different countries.
Does it meets in like a building somewhere there at Times Square?
Yeah, it's an actual church. So it's like almost looks on the inside, almost looks like a theater with the balconies and that kind of thing. And then they own, I think, all of that, because then they have not an office building, but a few-story building that they have small groups and classes in as well. And so it was just super cool, man, to see how people would do church in such a city as New York, right in the midst of it all. And so from that, it really just further branched me out to, walk the streets, talk to the homeless guys, and really just just get a really cool pulse on humanity in that city. And so it was nice.
I don't remember if it was Seattle or Minneapolis, but I would almost say like 95% sure one of those two cities. Like clearly, after all this stuff's going on right now, that there was like a huge revival that was happening in the streets. Like there was these groups that were going out in the streets in the cities, like out there with their little portable speakers, playing, gospel music, preaching the message, baptizing people. And, it's like it was getting like no coverage on the news. Of course, right? Yeah. And that's honestly one of like the saving graces about social media, is because then individuals can start sharing that. And then, it starts trending or whatever. And people here in Virginia, like me and you, we get to hear about it.
Yeah.
Whereas, like the big major networks aren't gonna cover that thing because, they have their own agendas. But, it's just like, hey man, in the chaos, God's moving. It's just one of those sobering thoughts. Like sometimes we get so stirred up by the drama of everything that's happening, we forget like God's still on the throne, man.
Amen. That's so good. I remember going to Niger, Africa, a couple years back, and on a missions trip. It was actually with Chick Fil A operators and folks from Chick Fil A support staff. So they partnered together to build Christian schools in Niger because their mission essentially was if you win the kids to Christ, they'll become the leaders of that nation, and so on and so forth. And this to be in an atmosphere where, this is the worst case scenario living conditions. And you're walking around and you got so many kids just running around, but there's joy on their face. And you're like, wow. So even in the midst of, they don't have anything, essentially, in our eyes from America, like, oh man, they've got nothing. But to them, they're like, well, I have everything I need, I got my family right here. I know food and water can be scarce at times, but I'm still here. And we would go to church services and see them worship and just worship alongside them. And the pureness of their worship was just so inspiring because it's like, wow, you're glorifying God when you don't really have much. And, we almost become either too modernized, too materialistic, too whatever, to not appreciate God in his purest form. So it's really interesting.
Yeah, it goes back to the whole, it's easier for a camel to go through an eye of a needle than a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven.
Yes.
We get so attached to the things of this world. We get so inundated with, got to have the latest thing, got to have this, got to have that. Like we talk about it all the time. It's like, we'll catch yourself, man, I really need to buy this. It's like, well, I don't need it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I want it. Mm-hmm. I only need it because I want it. That's about it. It's not like I really need it. And it's not one of those things where we're not trying to be like going back to monasticism where it's like, oh, everybody's going to go live in a monastery or, in a cave or,
right.
Wear wool and walk around and all that sort of other stuff. But we do, man. We get so caught up in the culture of all this stuff that you have to have. And we forget, so many people across this world have nothing, like nothing. Mm-hmm. And they're living, you talk about paycheck to paycheck, they're living day to day.
Yeah.
Day to day for food.
Mm-hmm.
That's a different world.
Totally different world. So it was very humbling. Very humbling. And I remember before going there, one of the operators was like, hey, just to let you know, I've done this trip a few times, but just go expecting God to whisper something to you. And oh man, dude, when I heard that, I was like, dude, I am pumped. I can't wait. I'm going to hear from God over there, right? So I go with that expectation of like just being all in and really just listening for God. And out there, it was much easier to do so because there wasn't so much noise, so to speak. So every night we would go up to the rooftop where we were staying and at night, and we would talk about the highs and the lows because it was a sensory overload for sure if you've never been. And then we just play some worship music, and we would just scatter across the rooftop and just have one-on-one time with God and just reflect. And it was so powerful. But one night, tears just coming down my face. I was just worshiping God, and he just whispered one word to me. He just kept saying discipleship over and over again. And I was just like, wow. And that seed was planted, and I think that kind of confirmed what I was feeling called to do over time. And so it was just so cool that in the midst, all halfway around the world, God was right there and so in tune with who I am because he created me. It's so cool to even fathom that idea. But for him to just whisper something right in my heart, and it just confirmed what I felt. So
another thing goes back to talking about, having your senses trained for righteousness. People, you get Christians that, swing in all different directions as far as like what they believe about certain doctrinal issues. Mm-hmm. What I've found over my life is that a lot of times we tend to overreact to things that we disagree with to a point that then goes beyond what the Bible says in that direction. Mm-hmm. And it's like the people who, tend to react to, like, let's say you get a group of Christians who are, running around believing that they audibly hear the voice of God, or they can, dictate when God's going to give them a vision or a dream. So then you get another group of Christians who are like, no, we don't think that happens today. And then they go way over here the other way to where God doesn't speak except for directly through the Bible. And it's like, well, you do realize that God is still alive and he's still very active and involved in the world. So, you know, when you, correct me if I'm wrong, but when you say like you heard God speaking to you, I'm sure you're not saying like, oh, I heard an audible voice, but more of like, it's like that intuition thing, right? He's like,
Yeah.
you know, it is almost as if you're sitting there having a conversation with him,
Right?
because it's so real that
Yep.
everything that's going on inside of you. And then it's like that light bulb goes off and you're just like, okay, yep, that makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, with the Holy Spirit living inside you, it's like you connect with God at a level you can't connect with anyone else. And so all it takes is a whisper or a nudge, and it's like it makes so much sense, or it sounds so clear because it's coming from literally within. And so it's really cool how God just can download whatever he wants, you know, to speak to you, and through whatever means, whether it's through his word, whether it's through someone else or whatever. He's just that creative.
He is very creative. So you said you didn't become a Christian until you were already like out of high school.
Yeah, 2010. So in 2009, I graduated high school, went right into the military, did about like 7 months of active duty time for training in South Carolina and Arizona. And so when I got back in 2010, I'll back up just 1 second. So in boot camp, I remember Private First Class Jamal Britt. He was a young man that was right in my platoon, stayed in the same barracks all through boot camp. And about once a week, he would pass by my bunk. It was maybe 9 p.m. or so, and he would pass by my bunk during night hours or during bedtime, and he was like, "Hey, man, me and a couple of guys are going to do a Bible study over here in the back of the barracks. Do you want to join us?" And I always said, "No, thanks. No, thank you." I wasn't a believer at the time and didn't know much about God or Bible or prayer or anything, and so I was like, no, I'm good. Well, towards the end of boot camp, he actually passed away. He had a medical condition, running, ended up in the hospital. We were in the woods when we heard the news. We were staying there overnight, and so they brought us all back to the home base, and brought out the chaplain. He would just, be able to talk with us. But it rocked me, man, to my core, and I was just in that seed of the man of God, just constantly opening that invitation, and then to see him go, it just, that seed sunk pretty deep. So when I came back, I found the church that my parents used to go to years ago when I was little. And so I was like, all right, let me check. They had a new location, which is Life Church in Mechanicsville. And so that pastor knew me since I was a newborn. So it was just so surreal how God took that and 15 years later essentially brought me back to that same church. And I remember going to a youth service. I did like a youth camp, and it was the first altar call I've ever been invited to. The pastor preached, and he said, "All right, everybody come up to the altar to pray." And man, everybody in there was just like running to the altar. And I was just like, is there a prize at the end or something? Like, what's up there? So I nonchalantly just kind of walk down the side wall and find a little corner like away from everybody else. And I was just like, all right, Lord, well, if you're there, here I am. And I felt like at that point I had given pretty much the world everything that I had, and I felt like I was on top of the world, had everything I needed, but felt very empty in terms of purpose. And so I was like, well, Lord, I gave the world everything, so I'll give you everything. What do I have to lose? And man, it was just this beautiful time of just crying, snot everywhere, baptized with the Holy Spirit. And I was just lost in his presence. And since then, back then, it was just beautiful. And that was the start of my walk with Christ, because I felt him and I knew he was real. And I think that was because it was so tangible to me. I knew that it was the right thing.
Do you remember what the guy was preaching?
I don't. Not a clue. Not a clue, man. But I got baptized on May 22nd, 2010. And it's been a wonderful ride ever since, man.
I got baptized May 23rd, 2003.
Wow. How about that?
Yeah. So I always remember it because it's 3/23/2003. A bunch of 2s and 3s in there, whatever.
That's cool.
But yeah, so 2010, huh?
Yep.
Time flies, doesn't it?
It does, man. It does. And my wife grew up in the church, and so, you know, when I first met her, she was taken at the time, you know, but I just came to Christ. And so I was like, all right, that's cool, you know, whatever. But clearly I have a lot of work to do with you, Lord, first anyway, before you even think about.
Did she grow up in that church?
Yeah, she did actually. Yeah, there's actually a picture I could show you later of her and I in the same Sunday school class when we were like kindergartners, essentially.
Wow.
And 15 or so years later, we reunite. And so, long story short, it took about a year to fall in love with Christ since, you know, I got baptized and everything and read the Bible all the way through, was going to every prayer service, Bible study I can get my hands on, just on fire for God. And it wasn't until after a full year had passed, she had split with the previous guy and she was single, and we were ironically at a block party serving fried chicken together.
That is ironic.
And we were flirting it up, and I got her number that night, man. And we started talking, and I was like, hey, Jazz, just want to let you know, like, the next woman I kiss, I'm going to marry. And so I need to make sure I have the green light from God. And so I prayed and fasted, really seeking God's clarity on that. And boy, oh boy, did he give me the green light.
Yeah.
Yep. And so, man, we had our first kiss on a front porch during a thunderstorm, man. It was like the lightning was flash photography from heaven, man. Sealed the deal. And dated for 2 years and been married for 6 now. So
nice.
It's been a blessing.
Nice. Mm-hmm. Wow, whole life ahead of you too, young man.
I know.
29 years old.
Dude, I know. I feel great.
I didn't realize I was that much older than you.
You know, you look young, man.
That's what people say when I shave.
Even more so.
Even more so. Even more so. So when I was younger, I didn't like it, you know, because I'm like, well, I'm 27, you know. People think I'm like 18. Now I'm 36. And I'm like, you know, when I get 45, they think I'm like 35. I'll be all right with that.
That's going to be sweet.
Yeah.
It's good genetics, bro.
Yeah, let's hope. Let's hope. You know, I try to eat healthy. We sit here and talk about Chick Fil A a lot. I do love me some Chick Fil A, but I do try to eat healthy.
Good.
Exercising. You got to get good sleep. Mm-hmm. Got to get the good sleep. I take, I would say every day, but that's not true because I often forget.
Okay.
But men's vitamin, like a legit one. You know, you can get the stuff at Walmart and you want to, a bunch of fillers, but you get like a legitimate vitamin. And then I take fish oil too. The reason I do that is because my family has the men in my dad's side have a really good history of heart problems. Okay. Cholesterol problems, all that stuff. So that's another thing I remember, like, from a very early age thinking to myself, like, I don't want to have bad health when I get older. Mm-hmm. You know? Mm-hmm. I remember, like, my grandpa on my dad's side. So my grandpa had heart problems. He died. He was in his early 70s. So, you know, pretty decent life. But he died, heart problems. My uncle, so my dad's brother, he passed away in his late 50s. Wow. Yeah. He was so relatively young. Mm-hmm. Maybe his early 60s, but I think late 50s. And then my dad passed away last year, so he was 69. So, did I say that right? Yeah, because he was born in 1950. So last year, that would have been 69. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, he's, you know, still pretty decent life there, you know, but I'm like, man, I want to go a little bit longer than that. Yeah. If I can.
Ideally.
I want to. I mean, don't get me wrong. I want to go and be with the Lord too, but if I could sit here and serve him a little bit longer, I'll do that as well. Mm-hmm. So we'll see how that works out. But I also want it to be a quality of life.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
Yeah, I don't want to be old and like you can't do anything.
Yeah. That'd be a tough lifestyle.
You ever seen those guys who are like 50s, but still like marathon runners?
Mm-hmm. That's what you want to be?
Like, maybe not the marathon runner. But like the guy who could go out and run like a couple miles.
At least look like you can do it.
Yeah, yeah. Or like they'll go, man, he's 50? Like,
man.
Yeah, like you know, like the 30-year-olds are looking at you going,
not bad.
Very well done, old man.
I'm impressed.
Yeah.
I can totally see that for you.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like, I'm never going to be the biggest, strongest guy. I'm totally fine with that. Don't need to be.
Yeah.
But that's another reason why I love doing jiu-jitsu stuff. Because I don't have to be the biggest, strongest guy, but I can still could still take you out probably.
Exactly.
No, I just get it. Like jiu-jitsu's actually humbled me a lot.
Oh, I'm sure.
It's humbled me a lot, dude. Have you ever done it?
Yes.
Have you really?
Basics.
Like
Very
the basics?
much the basics, yeah.
You took like an intro course?
That and also in the academy, just whatever we did with.
Oh, yeah. So I remember when I first started going into the gym for jiu-jitsu, and, I've always been a pretty in shape, athletic, agile, guy. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, yeah, I mean, I'm going to show these guys, they're going to take their little moves, and I'm going to use my agility and athleticism. Yeah, that got shut down pretty quick because they would take my speed and momentum and use it against me and then choke me out or snap my arm off or whatever.
Pretty much, yeah.
And, I remember guys like, my size or smaller than me or whatever, and it's like they're throwing me around like a rag doll, and I'm like, what is this? And so it's very humbling because, you're like, I get beat up by everybody. Like when you first start, you're like, I can't do anything.
Yeah.
Like everybody beats me up at will. It's not even like a struggle. They beat you up at will.
Yeah.
They just toy with you at some point because they get bored of beating you up so much. Mm-hmm. So then you get humble. And if you can overcome that humility, your ego, then that's when you can really learn. And I've seen that too. Like guys come in the gym and they just think their strength or their muscularness or how big they are, they're gonna bowl people over or whatever, and then they get tapped out by somebody like my size.
Yeah,
and you'll see them like they'll just stop coming. and I really do. I'm like, that's an ego. That's an ego problem.
Sounds like church on Sunday.
Right? Yeah. There you go. Hey, we never got to your favorite verse. What was your favorite verse?
Oh, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Yeah, I was telling
Maybe
you
did say that.
When I was in New York, I started running when it was super snowy and stuff. I would run on the treadmill, but it's still we had corporate housing, and so I was able to have a full like big bay window while running to see the city. It was super cool.
Now that is nice. Do you think you could do a treadmill like in a basement or at a gym?
Like in general?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't do that.
Yeah. I think I prefer to be outside.
Yeah.
When it's decent weather. I mean, but if it's pouring down rain or like 20 degrees, like who wants to run in that?
Yeah.
Some people do.
Some people.
So on those extremes, I'm like, yeah, I'm fine with the treadmill. But yeah, I can do either one. When I trained for the marathon, it was all outside for sure. But anyway, so I was running there, and I was trying to get really fast mile times on the treadmill while I was in there, and so I would take that verse, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, and I would put it in like a military cadence. So I'd be running, like, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And I would just go on and so forth. And I would forget how painful it was. Like, I would just focus on that and stay in rhythm with that. And I was able to get great times, and it was just cool.
I like to, if I have to do something inside, so if I'm doing like, we got a stationary bike. Mm-hmm. So if I'm doing a stationary bike, I'll throw up like a podcast that I like to listen to, or like some video that I want to watch, and I'll do that to distract myself. So that way I'm kind of like, I try to kill two birds at one time. Like, hey, instead of sitting on the couch and watching, 30 minutes of YouTube, go ride the bike and watch 30 minutes of YouTube, or something like that.
Yes.
Or like I'll do it when I'm driving down the road. I'll throw my not my podcast and listen to myself. How narcissistic is that? But I'll throw the podcast up that I like to listen to while I'm driving down the road, because that way I can be like learning and educating myself while driving, rather than just like mindlessly driving or listening to music.
It's good productivity right there.
I try to be. Yeah, I have to multitask because I like to do too many things.
Okay.
That's my problem.
Yeah. So if you can merge them.
Yeah, my wife will tell you that. I like to do too many things. What do you want to be when you grow up, kind of a deal, right? Like you kind of like I keep like, oh, I think I can do that. I can do that. I can do that. I can do that. And yeah. So she makes fun of me for that, but audiobooks. Big time in audiobooks. Yeah. Do you like audiobooks?
Jasmine loves them. I've tried a couple and I've enjoyed it. So I am definitely
fiction or nonfiction.
I think it was mostly nonfiction. Yeah, if I remember.
When I finally pulled the trigger on it, got it. It was like, yep, this is it, man. Because, I mean, like I work midnight shift. Like, working full-time at the sheriff's office. So right out of nighttime, and I mean, while I'm riding around, I'm just listening to an audiobook. I've listened to so many audiobooks, man. You think about all those long hours. I mean, I could easily get in 4 hours of listening to an audiobook a night.
Yeah.
In between going to a call or making a traffic stop or stumbling upon something, whatever. Mm-hmm. The rest of it's downtime. You're just riding around looking for stuff, checking on businesses or whatever.
Yeah.
Just like get all this, get all these books done. Boom.
Maximize your time.
Yeah, dude. I listened to like the whole Chronicles of Narnia series in like a week or two, and I listened to Treasure Island. So that's another fictional one. Mm-hmm. But then I like to learn, so I always talk about when we learn history, we learn a lot about like Western civilization. Like, here's the ancient Babylonians, Persians, Greeks, Romans, and then Western civilization. Yeah. and it's like, we don't, at least from my upbringing, like we don't think about the like the Asian cultures. I'm like, man, what was going on over there for all those thousands of years? Yeah. Japan, China, Mongol, so I listened to a whole book. It was like 18 hours on Genghis Khan.
Wow.
That was crazy.
I bet.
That guy was nuts. Have you ever studied?
Not really, no.
Dude, he killed so many people. He was ruthless. Ruthless, man. Wow. So, yeah, I mean, he conquered a lot of territory. Yeah. But he was super ruthless. Very barbaric. But anyway, excuse me. So I listened to that. Yeah, but just a bunch of other books, man. It's easy to power through them.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Super easy.
Fly through them, man.
Do you listen to any podcasts?
I haven't recently, man, to be honest. I listen to like sermons and stuff from other pastors. But podcasts, haven't found one until now that I
here we go. Yeah. You got to subscribe. You got to give me that subscriber. Who's your favorite celebrity preacher?
Celebrity preacher. I guess maybe Stephen Furtick. I enjoy listening to his stuff.
I don't even know who that is.
Yeah, I don't really consider him a celebrity. That's why it took me a while to think. He's well known, I guess, in general, elevation worship, that kind of thing.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I don't really care so much about the celebrity preachers. I like, I think his name is Michael Todd. I think he's in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Really good as well. So as long as you're preaching the word, man, you're talking about Jesus, I'm all in.
Yeah, people get caught up in celebrity Christianity. They don't understand that, like, there are so many really good, dynamic, super smart, wise preachers who have, like, no celebrity nature to them. You know what I mean? Like, people don't even know about them. Yeah. But they're some of the smartest people you ever meet or talk to, about the word.
I feel like I'm talking to one right now.
Nah, no, man. Not at that level. Not at that level. Trying to get there. Working on that master's.
Love it.
Learning from a lot of other smart people. I'm taking a philosophy class, classical philosophy, and super rough, man. Like it's not bad. It's a lot of terms and terms that we use in one way today, but they use it in a totally different way in the classical realm of philosophy. So having to like recondition your brain to when you're reading that paragraph to think about that word in that sense rather than the sense you want to use it. Oh wow. And then like just all this other stuff to it. So every night last week was 4.5 hours of lecture, Monday through Friday, and then a chunk on Saturday as well. So that's heavy, man.
That is very heavy.
That's heavy. And now now I got till January. I have a couple books to read. I have a couple articles to read, and then like we got to go back and read like some original sources from like read Plato, read Aristotle stuff, read I think some stuff from David Hume, read some stuff from Thomas Aquinas, and these big heavy hitters, and like it ain't easy, and I'm thinking to myself, man, these guys do this stuff for a living. Like there's legitimate for a living. I'm a philosopher. Or philosophy teacher. Yeah.
It's wild, man. I remember taking I guess it was an introduction to philosophy back in undergrad, and yeah, I was swimming in some deep waters in that.
What school was it?
VCU, right in Richmond.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, so this is only just like one chunk of philosophy, just that classical chunk. So, like we touch on some ancient philosophy, because obviously it has some connection there, but we don't even go through like all this stuff, like, the recent stuff and the stuff with the Enlightenment. It really focuses heavily on Thomas Aquinas and his connection with Aristotle. But, still in that sense, it's like, oh boy, but it what people don't understand is like, they go, like, that's beyond me. I'm not gonna do philosophy. Well, everybody does philosophy. Just whether you do good or bad philosophy,
essentially,
and you don't know the difference unless you know a little bit about philosophy, sort of a thing.
Good point.
So, but common sense, I've realized common sense goes a long way, because if you have good common sense, you can look at some of this technical philosophical jargon and go, yeah, that's dumb. That don't make sense. And like, I don't know why it's dumb, but it's dumb.
It is.
Yeah, it's dumb. That don't work. But what it does help with is the more I am studying it, the more I'm appreciating the Christian worldview for being the worldview that matches up with reality as we see it the best.
Nice.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's one of those things, like when I talk about apologetics, there's like objective arguments and things you can present. But then for me personally, there's the subjective things that also confirm just to me that, yeah, this is real. It's like, your rooftop experience.
Yeah.
It's like the Bible says God acts this way. I just experienced God acting this way. That to me is a confirmation. Yeah,
definitely.
Like for me personally, I'm not going to use that necessarily to try to be like, see, you should trust my subjective experience to convert to Christianity. But for me personally, it's one of those like when God answers a prayer, or when you can feel God moving in your life. Those sort of things.
Amen.
Absolutely. I've had them multiple times.
It's the best.
Yeah, dude. So 2010, you've been a Christian now for 10 years.
Woohoo! 10-year anniversary, baby.
Yeah, it was this during the pandemic, huh?
It was.
Did you have a cake?
I did not.
You should have.
But I've eaten a lot of cake during the pandemic. Definitely.
That's all good. So what's the big lesson that you have learned in your 10 years of being a Christian that you would pass on to a newbie?
I would say there's a lot of unknown. And so there's like this mystery to it all. And so, which is really fun, especially for, I think, guys and girls alike, but I think for a man, the whole adventure, that whole wild side, God created that. Like, he created adventure. And so he created that wilderness. He created all that wild feeling. You want to be out there in the wild type thing. So for me, yes, there's a lot of unknown, but there's so much adventure with it. And so it kind of captivated me from the beginning. And I feel like I don't think I'll ever reach a point where I feel like I know all of God, or I've learned everything I need to learn as a Christian. And so that part fascinates me that much more, because I'm like, man, I feel like I know God really well. Like, him and I are pretty tight, but like, there's so many deeper levels that I can still go for the next decade and the decade after that. So I think just for a newbie, you're going to have a lot of questions. There's going to be a lot of unknowns, but just take that next step, the next step closer. He may not illuminate the whole road or the whole path. More than likely, he'll illuminate the next step only. Because if you saw 10 steps down the road, you would probably freak out, pass out, or something of the combination. So I think really just trusting God, and do a lot more listening than talking. Like, definitely pray and talk to him. Let him know what you need. Let him know how you're feeling. Be real with him. He can take it. He can handle all your emotions. But then after that, pause and listen, for sure.
That's one thing we definitely forget to do, is to stop and listen to God speaking to us.
Yeah.
100%, man. Thanks, man. Thanks for coming on.
Dude, appreciate it, man. It's definitely a privilege and honor.
Yeah, so we want to lead people. So you are at Life Church in Mechanicsville. So if you guys want to check him out, go meet him in person since he's not on social media. He's up there. That's where you can find him in Mechanicsville at Life Church. And then later on down the road, he will be at a Chick Fil A somewhere in this country.
Amen.
Serving out the most delicious chicken sandwiches.
That's right.
Yeah, and those waffle fries. All right, man. Thanks for coming.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
See you, everybody.